Colin from Track Attack here. We're back at the Safe Auto Vault looking at another special car today. Now, if you're an aspiring Bond villain, this car might be the one for you. Today for our Paddock review, we're going to be reviewing this awesome Mercedes AMG GTR. And as always, I have my trusty assistant Rob here to lend his many years of experience and his opinion on wonderful cars such as this. Thanks for joining us today, Rob.
Thank you very much, Colin. You got to look at this AMG GTR. The thing about Mercedes back in the 80s, you had the 240 diesel, the 300 diesel. Those were known as, when Mercedes was rock solid, that reliability. It could do 300, 400, 500,000 kilometers, 100,000 kilometers anywhere in the world in any conditions. But over time, Mercedes kind of wanted to kind of get away from just that stodgy sort of, this is your dad's grandfather's Mercedes, and wanted to get a little more performance. 1967, a couple of guys got together and formed this little company called AMG. It was basically all about building of engines. They were really known for the 300 SEL, the Red Sow, 6.3 liter V8 dominated European touring car championships. And so Mercedes goes, hey, wait a minute, let's start working together. At first they didn't like them, but then they got to really like them and said, how can we help? 93, they get into a partnership, cooperation, start buying into the company, and by 1999, they fully owned AMG and started to integrate that fully into the company and started to add trim lines, right? Everyone's seen on the Mercedes-Benz, you get trim lines, you can get little bits and pieces, AMG, the wheels and such. They had models start coming out, so that's where you get the really cool engines and such. And then they went all in.
Yes.
And that's where you get a car like this. This is the second car that is fully made by AMG. The first one was the SLS, the one with the gull wings on it. Horrible idea, but it was, looked really cool. But then came into this car here, the AMG GTR. So this was about late 2013, started to build this with the different versions coming up to the granddaddy of them all, the GTR.
Let's actually talk about that for a second.
Okay.
So the first iteration of this car, of course, is the AMG GTS.
Yeah.
So that was their first real foray at this particular model, and it was meant to be an excellent sports car, a bit of a grand tour, I would argue. And then, of course, after that, they went to the GTC, which, interestingly enough, just because they went from the S to the C, you would think there wasn't a big change in the car. There actually was. Mechanically, they did a lot of different things.
Yes.
They had the four-wheel steering and a lot of other things with that car. And then to your point now, this is the really, the big boy of the group. This is the R. Now, the funny thing is, though, the difference between the S and the C is actually quite a bit of stuff. Now, the C to the R, oddly enough, isn't that much more.
No, it's not. There's a lot more to do with kind of trying to make it lightweight in certain areas. It's that, because it's Gran Turismo racing. That's what the R stands for, that racing.
Yeah.
Almost kind of like, the idea with the GT3 RS sort of idea. This is the one, it's like, this is the one that you're going to
track and be a little more sporty. The C is meant to be, let's face it, like your grand touring car.
Yes.
It's still good on the track, it's fast, it'll put a good lap time down, but at the end of the day, it's not really, the track car. This is meant to be sort of their GT3, if you will.
Yeah, well, you look at the numbers for this car. So when you think it's like 577 horsepower, out of this 4-liter V8 twin turbo,
handcrafted,
handcrafted.
AMG
We will
V8.
get to that when we open up the hood for sure. So 517 pound-feet of torque. It's laying down a 3.5 second 0 to 60, and it's 198 horsepower miles per hour.
Yeah.
From something that is still kind of brickish.
Yeah.
Those are GT3 RS. That is McLaren. That is Huracan numbers for something that is, like, what is this car? We sort of look at what actually is this car. Is this a supercar?
Arguably, yes.
Is it a Grand Touring car?
Yes.
Is it a German muscle car?
Yes.
Is it a James Bond villain car?
Absolutely. It is. Like,
Look at this thing. Before I kill you, Mr. Bond, this is the car to basically to have for sure.
before I kill you, Mr. Bond, actually, in fact, I'm going to kill you via heart attack with a lap around the Nürburgring in this car.
Yeah, exactly. This thing is a monster to drive around.
Yep.
So let's take a look around. First, you have to look at this car. First of all, look at the color. Can you say James Bond villain easily? Except for, of course, the chrome here, right?
That's for the new gen classier James Bond villain. That's why that's there.
Oh, because it matches your cufflinks. Is
Absolutely.
That the idea?
So
Okay,
you
there
get
we
it,
go.
yes.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Cufflinks in the car, cufflinks on it. Totally get it.
Yeah.
But you look around. The other thing about this car, which I really think that AMG really likes, is once again, AMG or Mercedes in general is very much about their history.
Mm-hmm.
The styling of this car is very reminiscent of the old 300
SL. Yes.
from like the end 50s.
Yeah.
You know, the gull wing coupe or the roadster.
Well, it's got that long nose,
Long
the big
nose.
hood, the very rearward sort of, you know, like driving position. You're sitting almost over the rear axle.
And we come around to the front. Let's come around to the front, and we'll take a look at the grille. This is very reminiscent.
Yes.
So we don't have the round lights, but that front that goes on forever, and very functional. So underneath, it's actually got a automatic control fairing. This actually does move as you go over 80 kilometers an hour. You know, with that big engine, that 4-liter V8, you're going to need a lot of air to go through that.
Yep.
So you see the radiators on the side to cool down. Absolutely spectacular.
And actually,
My
while we're here at the
God,
front,
this, I don't know if there's a bazooka under there or what that is, but that's the biggest Mercedes symbol I've ever seen.
being that large, I'm going to assume that it's going to be one of those rotating machine guns like in the Predator.
Oh yeah.
It's gotta be at that
Vulcan
size.
machine gun like on an A10 Warthog. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally got you on that one. You were completely correct.
Yep.
I definitely.
And for this price point, that's what I would expect as well. I don't
Yeah.
want like a single barrel gun. I want something
Yeah,
that's
you
gonna
want something that actually
kill
will-
everything in front of you.
Yeah.
And let's face it, when you just stand here and look at the front end of this car, it's so wide, so low, it looks menacing with the big open mouth grill, the slanted eyes. It looks like it wants to kill you. Like, you imagine this pulling up behind you in your rearview mirror.
Oh, I was going to say the exact same thing. So you're there driving your Austin Martin, just sitting along nicely. You look and you adjust the rearview mirror and see that evilness behind you, especially this color. Yes, it is here to kill you, Mr. Bond. If we move around to the sides, I love how this little detail, this little shark fin, serrated knife looking. All these AMGs, the SL, the SLS, have all had this beautiful chrome as well, let's say, the V8 bi-turbo. That is another signature for this car. You got the beautiful carbon fiber. Ironically, the R will not have all like the heated and automatically turning mirrors on some of the other ones because they want to get a little bit lighter.
Oh, because this car is all about lightweight.
Oh, at 3,600 pounds. Okay, so yeah, it's I'm not really sure why it's thinking to do that, but sure. You can actually get there's an option to get carbon ceramic brakes, over $10,000 option. But if you're going to track this, you got a lot of go. You're going to need that stop. But I love the rear end on this thing.
Beautiful.
The rear end on this, once again, not as good as the front, but it means business. You still have this nice little carbon fiber wing on the back, because you do look at even though I like to say, it's a brick, like how many aerodynamic cars have quite literally a 90-degree angle on the front for that grille. But it comes in nicely to give that nice coefficient of friction. Beautiful GTR, badge on the back, and that exhaust.
I love that center exhaust. And the way it ties in with the rear diffuser, it's beautiful. The aesthetics are lovely. Speaking of all the luxury bits on this car being sophisticated, why don't we take a look at the interior? I think that's going to allude to that.
Please, let's do that. Okay, Colin, so now we're in the car here, and I see you're doing the same thing I am. I sit in here and I automatically start tenting my fingers and start plotting evil villain type tasks.
I agree. The car has that influence on it for some reason.
It does. It's wonderful. What I really love when I first get in here is this red button. You get in and everything's dark except for that red button, and all I want to do is push it. I must push the red button.
Can't resist.
No, cannot. So that's how you start it. It's pretty hilarious. It's like, push this. The other thing about this is very interesting, that the traction control. So there's another yellow button here. No, it's not for brake bias like you think it'd be on a Formula One car.
Can I just say though that
yes,
the interior is gorgeous. You type on the button, you know, everything's luxurious. But this
Why
yellow
is that,
knob,
I know, why is that there?
It looks like something like a 1980 garage-built Honda Civic race car, and you put in a aftermarket brake bias that cost you $20 on eBay. Yeah. That's what this knob looks like. It stands out. It's so weird.
It does. It is. It makes no sense, because other than the nice red button, and after you started the car, it's gone. It is yellow. Yellow button. Yellow button. Yellow button. It is right there. Because even after this, you have all these controls, like, you know, I said machine guns, oil, smoke, all that kind of stuff is right here. The dash is, you know, I love how it's, you know, like so many cars today, it's an LED dash, but it's pretending to be analog, which is pretty funny, right? So, you know, all your bevels and such. The gear shift is oh so tiny.
I love it in this car though, because it actually has this little palm-shaped knob thing.
I know.
Unlike some of the newer cars, that little, like the new Porsches.
Oh,
my God,
okay,
that weird little nipple thing.
Yeah,
this thing, I love this actually.
So at least it's something there. And actually that has been around for like a good 15 years. It's just gotten a bit smaller. Same with the control for your infotainment system. It is all on this roller dial, which is very interesting. And of course, once again, you know, this one, normally, you know, all the controls have been slowly, like a lot of these high performance vehicles have all migrated to your steering wheel to the point this, you know, I said if that was here and it was your brake bias, that looks like a Formula One steering wheel with everything you have. And then you look out to the front. If you want to look at your visibility, it's actually, you know, even though it's got a really high sill, you actually have reasonable visibility. And in a hood,
I will say that might be the case for you.
I'm sorry,
my limited stature, I look here and I can see a lot of hood.
A lot of hood. I still see a lot of hood as well.
I can see the road, but it's like 3 miles ahead somewhere.
Yes, you have to drive this. You'll have to drive this car quite a bit to fully understand, comprehend the edges of the vehicle.
Yes.
There is no doubt about that.
There's a lot of front end out there.
There's a lot of wonderful front end up there. There's a lot of German power sitting right up there. So here's your nice, you know, love the feel of this. You can really feel that you have control of this car from this.
Good seating position.
Good seating position. As I understand, the steering is very light. It's very positive control for such a big vehicle.
Speaking of steering, let's talk about that for a second.
Yes, the steering.
Now, of course, this doesn't have traditional steering in the sense that most cars, you turn the wheel, the two front tires turn in the direction of the wheel, and the rest of it is what it is. This car's different.
Yes, having that rear steering, especially if you've done it like for the first time, it can be kind of unnerving. But man, it makes this thing just dance around like a ballerina.
Yes, especially at the lower speeds.
Yes.
That's the thing, because let's face it, this thing is a wide track, it's a big car, so traditionally a car like this at lower speeds isn't going to be something like a Miata.
No.
However, with that rear steering, that kind of changes the game, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It's really interesting the way it changes the dynamic of the rear end and just makes it a lot more, I would just say, you know, technical term here, rotatey.
Yes.
It makes the car rotate. The back end
like
is very lively, and you can do a lot more with it, especially at the lower speeds. You know, I know the first time I drove one of these at rear steering, to your point, I didn't know it had rear steering. So first corner, I'm thinking the back end doesn't feel right. Like there's something weird going on
Something's
back there.
broken. Something's broken. I'm going to die.
That's it. And then after a few corners, I noticed that weirdness was consistent though. So I'm thinking, okay, so I don't think it's something bad with the car. And then I remember I went and researched after the fact that this one had rear steering, the model, when it first came out. And the next time I got to drive one, knowing that, I felt a little more confident pushing the car. And but yeah, the dynamic of the car is quite interesting in the way it handles, the way it turns. Again, just the liveliness of the car, especially being a big car with a wide wheelbase.
Very much so. Of course, when we talked about this wonderful yellow button, we were so focused on the yellow button. That's the traction control. And there are 9 settings for your traction control.
Yes,
9
settings. Yeah.
And that's not German for no. That is 9. 9. Yes.
And
9. That's all I can say is there's 9 of them. Why?
One of those cool settings actually lets you look like a pro drifter in this car too.
Yes.
You can hang it out sideways, smoky tires, and the car does it perfectly every time. So you can seriously look like a hero driving one of these. Speaking of muscle car stuff, let's go look at some V8s.
Yeah, I love this. This is the best part. Okay, Colin, let's look at the business end of our wonderful AMG GTR.
That is a big hood.
This is a big hood. This is more a sail than a hood for something so massive.
So this is something you're familiar with then. This is good.
Yeah. The AMG engine. One of the best parts about the greatest stories for AMG is that you actually have Raphael Doubles. He is the technician who built this engine.
Yep.
If he is not at work one day when this engine is being built, they put a sheet over it, and he comes back. When he comes back, he continues to work on it. He is the only person to touch this motor.
Yep.
So AMG, his signature is on this motor. Now I think you notice something else that's very interesting about this motor is how far back it is.
So are we talking about the motor or the airbox that takes up, I would argue, more space under the hood?
Yeah, well, you actually think the engine
itself
is, my God, this is the most massive engine I've ever
It's
seen.
like an inline 12 or something.
Yeah, exactly. But so the interesting thing about this, notice how that the wheels are so far forward on the body.
Yes.
But the engine is over there. This is actually a mid-front engine car.
It's a mid-engine car.
And that's what we talked about earlier about the steering, how light and nimble it is because you do not have that inertia that so many of the big front engine rear-wheel drive cars have, where the engine comes forward. You don't have that inertia. You're trying to turn it through the corners. It is farther back, so it just moves.
Yep.
Now, of course, it also means that this thing is absolutely massive. And one thing that Mercedes has done to be able to, so you actually can work on it, is there is a service mode, so then it completely becomes a sail. Right?
You know, the other thing worth mentioning in terms of the performance of the engine, and I have to say I've driven a heck of a lot of cars, thankfully because of my job, and this is the only car I've driven that's turbocharged that does not feel turbocharged.
Mm-hmm.
There is pretty much zero turbo lag on this car. It feels like a naturally aspirated V8. Doesn't matter the RPM, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You just put your foot in it, it just pins you to the seat, and it goes. Plain and simple.
It develops at 517 at 1900 RPM.
Yes, that's crazy.
So, like I said, once again, it's a muscle car. It's a turbocharged muscle car.
It is, absolutely. But without the sort of negative effects of the turbocharger, just the positive.
Just the positive.
Yes, absolutely. So I think Raphael did a good job on this one.
Very well. Yes, we salute you, sir. Fantastic. So, Colin, you have to think about this car once again. It is exceptional. The fact that you have the performance, but the unique look of this car. That yes, you could be dressed up, you could go to a show, you can go to a high hotel, come in. I don't know if I want to give this to a valet, but you will be dressed up, you can look good in this car.
Yes.
So said at the beginning, is it a supercar? I'd say it's a supercar, look at those numbers.
Yep.
Is it a grand touring car? Well, you can take a lot of equipment. You are driving in comfort at a rapid speed.
Still a Mercedes.
Is it a German muscle car? Well, we talked about the engine. All that power, what you can do, turn off the traction control and start spinning around like crazy.
V8 rear-wheel drive.
Rear-wheel drive. Is it a James Bond villain car?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, definitely, yes. Mr. Bond, you've got serious problems if I'm behind you in this. An amazing vehicle, for sure.
Would you buy one?
Yes.
For the price tag?
Yeah, see, that's the thing about the price tag on this. It's, that $160,000, $180,000.
Yep.
That's half the price of your Hurricanes, your GT3s, of your McLarens. So yeah, I would track this thing. Yep. I would drive it all over the place. Totally. Would I buy this? Very much so. I am a fan of AMG.
I agree. I would fully buy this car. You know what? I think we would have to fight each other to see who can get in line first to purchase this car. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to see us banter and drool over this wonderful Mercedes. As always, again, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We have lots of great stuff coming up. And of course, remember, we're getting close to season 2 of our full Track Attack series. That means we're gonna be on track, testing cars like these. In fact, we may even have one of these in a different color lined up for this season.
I call dibs, though. I've called dibs for that.
You have to wear your evil outfit for the day.
I will bring a tuxedo. And a monocle. I'll bring a monocle, too.
So again, guys, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss me and Rob with our best James Bond villain impressions. And of course, as always, thanks for coming out, Rob. And we'll see you guys at the track.